Have you ever wondered why your prayers seem to go unanswered? You cry out to God, but heaven remains silent. You ask, you plead, but nothing changes. Could it be that you're missing something? Jesus revealed a powerful prayer, one that has been forgotten by many, yet it holds the key to unlocking divine intervention. This isn't just another prayer. It's the prayer that opens all doors, the one that brings God's presence into your life in ways you've never experienced before. Most people pray without knowing why their prayers aren't working. They repeat words hoping for a breakthrough, but Jesus taught that prayer is not about repeating phrases. It's about connection, faith, and alignment with God's will. What if the reason your prayers seem powerless is because you're praying the wrong way? What if Jesus already left you the perfect prayer, but you've been overlooking it? Today we're going to uncover this forgotten key, and once you understand it, your prayer life will never be the same again. This is not just about praying more, it's about praying the way Jesus prayed. It's about accessing the kind of prayer that brings miracles, the kind that moves heaven and transforms lives. If you've ever felt distant from God, if you've ever wondered why your prayers feel empty, then stay with me until the end, because today, you're about to receive a revelation that will change the way you pray forever. Before we begin, tell me in the comments, have you ever felt like your prayers were going unheard? What do you think could be blocking your breakthrough? And if you believe in the power of prayer, if you believe that God still speaks today, make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and stay with me until the final moment, because by the end of this, you will never pray the same way again. Many believers find themselves in a frustrating cycle of prayer, asking God for help, but never seeing real results. They pray, they hope, and yet, heaven seems silent. Why? Could it be that God is not listening, or is there something deeper at play? The Bible is filled with prayers that moved mountains, healed the sick, and even raised the dead. So if prayer has that kind of power, why does it seem ineffective for so many? The truth is, Jesus revealed a way to pray that unlocks divine intervention, yet most people have overlooked it. One of the biggest mistakes people make in their prayer life is treating it like a wish list, rather than a spiritual connection. God is not a vending machine where we insert a request and expect immediate gratification. Prayer is a sacred conversation, a bridge that connects human hearts to the divine will of God. Jesus demonstrated this over and over again in his earthly ministry. When he prayed, things happened, miracles, healings, transformations. His prayers weren't just words, they were declarations of faith, perfectly aligned with the Father's will. The problem is that many approach prayer with hesitation, doubt, or even selfish motives. James 4:3 states, "You ask and do not receive, because you ask with wrong motives, so that you may spend it on your pleasures." This verse alone reveals why so many prayers go unanswered. They are not rooted in faith or alignment with God's plan, but in personal desires. Jesus never prayed outside of God's will, and that's why every single one of his prayers bore fruit. If we want to see real change in our spiritual lives, we must learn to pray as he did. Another key reason why prayers seem to go unheard is a lack of persistence. Many give up too soon, assuming God's silence means no. But in Luke 18, Jesus tells the parable of the persistent widow, a woman who refused to stop knocking until justice was granted. He used this story to teach that prayer requires perseverance. It's not about saying a few words and hoping for the best. It's about standing firm, trusting that God will respond in his perfect time. True prayer is not passive. It's a relentless pursuit of divine presence and guidance. So if you've ever wondered why your prayers seem ineffective, consider this. Are you praying the way Jesus taught? Are your prayers rooted in faith, persistence, and alignment with God's will? Because here's the truth. Jesus left us a powerful prayer, one that most people overlook. A prayer that doesn't just request but transforms, aligning our hearts with heaven. And in the next part, we will uncover this hidden key, the prayer that moves the heavens and releases God's power like never before. Jesus never prayed without purpose. Every time he lifted his voice to heaven, something happened. Demons fled, the sick were healed, the dead were raised. His prayers weren't empty words but direct channels of divine power. So, what made Jesus' prayers so different? The answer lies in his complete alignment with God. Unlike many who pray without conviction, Jesus prayed with absolute certainty, knowing that the Father was always listening. He didn't use prayer as a last resort but as a constant lifeline, a daily surrender to the will of God. The forgotten prayer of Jesus is not some mystical incantation or secret formula. It is the very essence of communion with God. In John 17, we see one of the most profound prayers Jesus ever spoke. This is not just a request for help, but a declaration of divine purpose. "Father, I have glorified you on earth by accomplishing the work you gave me to do." John 17:4. Jesus wasn't just asking, he was affirming, aligning, and stepping into his divine calling. His prayer was never about self-interest, but about fulfilling God's will, and that is what unlocked the supernatural. Many today struggle with prayer because they focus on their own needs rather than God's plan. But Jesus taught a different approach, one where prayer is not about manipulating God to act, but about surrendering to his greater purpose. In Matthew 6:10, he prayed, "Your kingdom come, your will be done, on earth as it is in heaven." This is the prayer that changes everything. Instead of pleading for solutions, he called upon heaven to invade earth, allowing God's perfect plan to unfold. This is the prayer that opens doors, the prayer that cannot be ignored. But there's something even more powerful about Jesus' way of praying. He didn't just pray, he lived his prayers. His life was a demonstration of his communion with the Father. He prayed with such authority because he walked in obedience. Many ask God for miracles but refuse to live in alignment with his will. But Jesus showed that true prayer is not just spoken, it is acted upon. His prayers weren't passive, they were declarations of faith that shaped reality. When he said, "Lazarus, come out," John 11:43, it wasn't a wishful hope, it was a command rooted in divine certainty. This is the power of the prayer Jesus left us. It is not about reciting words, but about stepping into divine alignment. It is about moving from a place of human limitation to a place where God's will reigns supreme. And that's why many prayers today fail, because they lack this depth of connection. But once we grasp this truth, everything changes. And in the next section, we will uncover the barriers that block effective prayer and how to break them. Many believers pray daily, yet they feel like their prayers never reach heaven. They cry out to God expecting an answer, but all they hear is silence. Is God ignoring them? No. The real issue is that certain spiritual barriers block their prayers from being effective. The Bible reveals that faith is the foundation of prayer. James 1:6 states, "But let him ask in faith without doubting, for the one who doubts is like a wave of the sea, driven and tossed by the wind." Doubt is a silent killer of prayers. When someone prays but secretly questions whether God will answer, that uncertainty weakens their spiritual authority. Jesus never doubted. When he prayed, he expected results. That's the kind of faith that moves mountains. Another major reason prayers go unanswered is unforgiveness. Many approach God with requests, yet their hearts are filled with resentment. Jesus was clear about this in Mark 11:25. "And whenever you stand praying, if you have anything against anyone, forgive them, so that your Father in heaven may forgive your sins." A heart burdened with bitterness is a heart closed to God's blessings. The enemy knows this, which is why he tries to keep believers trapped in past wounds. But Jesus taught that true prayer flows from a heart of love and mercy. If someone wants their prayers to be heard, they must first let go of grudges and allow God's grace to work through them. Selfishness is another reason many prayers remain ineffective. James 4:3 warns, "You ask and do not receive because you ask wrongly, to spend it on your own passions." God is not obligated to grant every human desire. Many people treat prayer like a list of demands, asking for wealth, success, or status without considering God's purpose for their lives. But Jesus prayed differently. Every request he made was centered on fulfilling God's will, not personal gain. The key to powerful prayer is shifting from "God, give me what I want" to "God, use me for your purpose." That's when heaven responds. One of the most overlooked obstacles to answered prayer is inaction. Many pray and wait, expecting God to do everything for them. But faith without works is dead, James 2:26. Jesus prayed, but he also acted. When he healed the sick, he didn't just ask the Father, he laid hands on them. When he fed the multitudes, he didn't simply pray for food, he multiplied what was available. Prayer is not about passively waiting. It's about stepping into faith and moving in obedience. God honors those who combine prayer with action. Understanding why prayers go unanswered is the first step to unlocking supernatural results. But knowing what blocks prayer is not enough. Believers must also learn how to pray effectively. In the next section, we will uncover the key that Jesus gave to align our prayers with God's will and experience real breakthroughs. Jesus didn't just pray, he prayed in perfect alignment with the will of God. That's what made his prayers so powerful. Many people struggle in their prayer life because they treat God like a genie, expecting him to grant their wishes without considering his greater purpose. But prayer was never meant to be about bending God's will to fit human desires. It's about aligning human hearts with God's divine plan. In Matthew 6:33, Jesus gives us the key. Seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things will be added to you. Before asking, believers must first seek God's kingdom. When they do, their prayers move from being self-centered to being kingdom-focused, and that's when heaven responds. Jesus' prayers always began with acknowledging the Father's authority. In John 11:41, before raising Lazarus from the dead, he said, "Father, I thank you that you have heard me." Notice that he didn't start with a request. He started with gratitude and faith. Many prayers today are filled with desperation instead of confidence in God's sovereignty. But Jesus demonstrated that the first step to powerful prayer is recognizing who God is. When believers begin their prayers by glorifying God, their hearts shift from worry to worship, creating an atmosphere where faith thrives. Another vital lesson Jesus taught is surrender. In the Garden of Gethsemane, facing the cross, he prayed, "Not my will, but yours be done." Luke 22:42. This was not a prayer of weakness, but of ultimate trust. Many people pray, hoping God will change their circumstances, but true prayer is about allowing God to change them first. Jesus showed that the most powerful prayers are not demands, but declarations of trust in God's plan. When believers reach a place where they can genuinely say, "Lord, whatever you will, I accept," they step into a dimension of faith where miracles happen. Faith and obedience go hand in hand when it comes to effective prayer. Jesus didn't just pray, he lived what he prayed. When he taught his disciples to pray in Matthew 6:10, he said, "Your will be done, on earth as it is in heaven." This wasn't just a phrase, it was a lifestyle. Many pray for God's will, but continue to live in opposition to his commands. But alignment with God requires action. The moment believers stop treating prayer as a routine and start living in obedience to his word, they will see supernatural breakthroughs. When prayer is aligned with God, it becomes unstoppable. It shifts from being a personal request list to a divine conversation that changes lives. And this is exactly what Jesus taught. Prayer is not about getting what we want, but about stepping into what God has already prepared for us. But there's more. Jesus also revealed a secret practice that gives prayer its full power, and in the next section, we'll uncover this hidden weapon that most believers overlook. Jesus had a pattern of withdrawing to pray in solitude. Unlike many who pray only in public or in moments of crisis, he prioritized private communion with God. In Matthew 6:6, he gave a clear instruction. "But when you pray, go into your room, close the door, and pray to your Father, who is unseen. Then your Father, who sees what is done in secret, will reward you." This was not just a suggestion, it was a revelation. There is a level of intimacy with God that can only be reached when distractions are eliminated and a believer enters into a secret place of prayer. This is where faith is strengthened, where divine direction is given, and where breakthroughs begin. The power of secret prayer is seen throughout Jesus' life. Before choosing his disciples, he spent the entire night alone in prayer, Luke 6:12. Before walking on water, he withdrew to a mountain to pray, Matthew 14:23. Before going to the cross, he prayed so intensely in Gethsemane that his sweat became like drops of blood, Luke 22:44. If Jesus, who was perfect and in constant unity with the Father, needed private prayer, how much more do believers today? Many people neglect this powerful practice, replacing it with rushed, surface-level prayers. But those who cultivate a secret prayer life step into a dimension of faith that few experience. There is something supernatural about shutting out the world and focusing entirely on God. In secret prayer, distractions fade, and the voice of God becomes clearer. Elijah experienced this when God spoke to him in a whisper, not in the wind, fire, or earthquake. 1 Kings 19:12. Too often, people expect to hear God in dramatic moments, but his greatest revelations come in stillness. Those who seek him in the quiet will find their spirit awakened to his presence. This is why the enemy works hard to keep believers busy, distracted, and overwhelmed, because a believer who consistently enters the secret place of prayer is unstoppable. Jesus' instruction in Matthew 6:6 also reveals something incredible. God rewards those who seek him in private. Many chase public validation, wanting their faith to be seen by others, but true spiritual power is developed in unseen moments with God. The greatest victories are won in private before they are ever seen in public. Daniel's unwavering faith in the lion's den was not formed in a moment. It was the result of a disciplined private prayer life, Daniel 6:10. When believers cultivate this kind of secret prayer, they don't just survive life's trials, they walk through them with unshakable faith and divine favor. Jesus left no doubt. Prayer is not just about speaking, it's about intimacy with the Father. The secret place is where spiritual battles are won, where faith is forged, and where lives are transformed. But prayer is not a monologue, it's a dialogue. Many pray, but few truly listen. And in the next section, we'll uncover how prayer becomes a two-way conversation that deepens our relationship with God and changes everything. Jesus made it clear. Prayer is not just about speaking, it's about connecting with God in a way that transforms lives. Many see prayer as a ritual, but Jesus revealed it as a divine exchange, a moment where faith meets the supernatural. The power of prayer doesn't come from repeating words, but from a heart fully surrendered to God. Matthew 21:22 says, "And whatever you ask in prayer, believing, you will receive." This means that prayer is not about begging, it's about believing. Those who pray with faith, persistence, and alignment with God's will see doors open that no one can shut. True prayer is a lifestyle, not an event. It's not just about moments of desperation, but about daily communion with the Father. Jesus didn't pray only when things got difficult. He prayed constantly. That's why he walked in divine authority. Many struggle in their faith because they see prayer as a tool for emergencies rather than a foundation for daily life. But when believers make prayer their first response instead of their last resort, they will see God's hand move in ways they never imagined. Consistency in prayer leads to consistency in spiritual growth. Another key to transformation is understanding that prayer is not a one-sided conversation. Many pray but never stop to listen. Yet, throughout the Bible, God speaks to those who seek him. In Jeremiah 33:3 he promises, "Call to me, and I will answer you and tell you great and unsearchable things you do not know." Prayer is not just about presenting requests, it's about receiving revelation. Those who develop the habit of listening to God through his word and through the quiet leading of the Holy Spirit walk in divine wisdom and clarity. Jesus' teachings on prayer were never meant to be just ideas, they were meant to be applied. Those who put these principles into practice will see their prayer life shift from routine to revival. The faith that moves mountains, the miracles that change lives, the breakthroughs that defy human logic, they all begin in a life of prayer aligned with God. Jesus didn't just teach about prayer, he demonstrated its power. And those who follow his example will experience the same supernatural results. Now it's time to take action. Prayer is not just a theory, it's a weapon, a key, a bridge between the natural and the supernatural. If you truly want to see God move in your life, start today. Commit to praying with faith, seeking him in secret, aligning your heart with his will, and watching as he opens doors that no one else can. Because when prayer is done God's way, nothing remains the same. Now that you've discovered the forgotten prayer that Jesus revealed, the question is, will you apply it? Prayer is not just words, it's a key that unlocks the supernatural. If you've been struggling with unanswered prayers, now is the time to align your heart with God and step into the kind of faith that moves mountains. But tell me, what part of this teaching spoke to you the most? Have you ever experienced a breakthrough through prayer? Share your experience in the comments, because your testimony can inspire others. If this message blessed you, don't leave without subscribing to the channel and turning on notifications. That way you won't miss the next powerful revelation that will take your faith to the next level. And before you go, check out the next video on the screen, because what you'll learn there will transform your walk with God even further. Stay strong in faith, and I'll see you in the next teaching. God bless you. This is Marco signing off.